Welcome back to the Pistons Jack YouTube channel. On today's episode, we're talking power forwards. We'll break down Bobi Klintman's Summer League play so far, and I'll give you 3 under-the-radar free agents the Pistons could sign right now to help fill that void at the backup 4 for the upcoming season. So let's get to it. Okay, before we get to Bobi and some of these free agents, I just want to do a quick opening on the Pistons backup 4 position. Spoken about it a lot. I think that is the one hole that needs to be filled on this roster. I do start to think now that the Pistons, with how this roster is looking, they still need to sign at least one more player, but with how it's looking, it looks like there's an investment in maybe playing Ron and Asar backup 4 minutes. I would much prefer probably to see Ron play the backup 4 because I just think I'm not too high on Asar playing backup 4 minutes because I think it takes him off the perimeter too much defensively. But that's an argument for another day. But it seems like there's an investment in potentially playing those two at the backup 4 when Tobias isn't there. The concern though is that if Tobias, especially if Tobias gets injured, what's the plan? Like Tobias is going to be 32, 33 next year. He is durable, has always been pretty durable, but he's getting older. I think even last season he missed 5 to 10 games maybe. And look, he could be healthy the whole year, play all 82, but injuries always happen. Maybe it happens to someone else who's playing backup 4 minutes. So I think the Pistons still need to get a backup 4. And I'm going to talk about Bobi Klintman here and why, how his play has shown to me that the Pistons still need a backup 4. That's no slide on Bobi. We'll talk about him in a sec. But just off the top, to me, backup 4 needs to be filled. I've spoken about guys like Boucher, Trey Lyles, Precious Achiuwa, who I think are the best options they can get. But I've also found 3 other guys who I think will be literally only vet minimums, and you could get them for very cheap, and maybe there is some value there that you don't have to use the biannual on, and you can save that for the biannual exception. You could save that for next off season, the 5.5 million, I think it is. So let's start with Bobi Klintman's Summer League so far. As you can see here on the right, he had his best game of Summer League against the Heat, which was yesterday or the last game the Pistons played, depending on what time you're watching this. He had 20 points, 2 steals, hit 3 threes, shot 63% from the field, and just had a complete game where I think he might have had a couple of turnovers, that kind of thing, but it was by far his best game across 4 quarters. The best game since the first game against the Knicks, where I thought he was solid, and these were the Bobi Klintman games we saw from last Summer League. But overall, whilst I think Bobi, in the eyes of a lot of fans, has probably been disappointing, the way I'm honestly looking at it is I didn't expect Bobi to be the backup 4 next season. I think that is too much to ask for a guy that had a pretty major injury in his rookie year and only really played G League minutes apart from, minutes in junk time and game 82. I think it was going to be a massive ask for him to be ready to be the backup 4 next season. You can't play that little NBA minutes and be the backup 4 on a team that should be pushing for top 4 in the East. I think at worst, barring anything crazy happening, the Pistons are a top 6 team. They definitely have the talent to be in the top 4, but at worst next season, barring anything crazy, they should be top 6. And to ask Bobi to come in, who was a second round pick, and I love the upside of Bobi, but I think you're seeing it this Summer League. He's still got stuff to work on, and I think, if anything, maybe that injury was more of a step back than we thought. But I say all this to say, I'm not overly concerned. I think what I've taken from this Summer League is that he needs to add strength. He just needs to add strength through the core, through his legs, so he can be more damaging inside the 3-point line. Feels like this, no one's really spoken about it, the coaching staffs of either team, opposing or the Pistons, but it feels like teams have figured him out a little bit that he's only looking to pass on drives, and he's good enough to get some of these passes and still get assists, but feels like a lot of his turnovers has come from him driving and then teams just knowing not to send help and him just getting lost and throwing these tough passes. It just feels like to average only 2.5 assists, which is actually a fine number for a 4, but the 3.5 turnovers are way too many. He had the game that sticks out to me the most for where Bobi's strengths and weaknesses are is the Timberwolves game. He had I think he had 12 rebounds that game, which was a huge tick. But everything else, like, he really struggled. The Timberwolves ran him off the 3-point line, and you just saw. I remember he took a dribble pull up and like hit the backboard, didn't hit any rim. He doesn't really have a float game, and then he just doesn't have the strength on drives right now to absorb contact, draw help, and kick it out, or absorb contact, finish, draw fouls. But that's, I think, from my end, like, Bobby's a bit more of a long-term project to me. Like, you can see he's got that special playmaking ability, in my opinion. Like, I think he's got real feel, and I think the 3-point jumper can be a real threat, but he's got to add strength. So, like, on his summer league so far through 4 games, he's pretty much given you 11 points, 8 rebounds, which is second most on the team, 2.5 assists, a steal, a block, 3.5 turnovers is like a bit of a bummer. Then he's shooting 44%, 33% from three, 60% from the line. So the efficiency, you want to see that all uptick. And that's why it was really nice to see him game 4. He had a really nice D-cell finish where he like drove one step, hanged, and then like took another and then had a nice finish around the rim, hit some threes. So hopefully he can build on that. I do think he'll play against the Spurs. I feel like he will in game 5 just to hopefully finish the Summer League campaign with back-to-back great games. But that's my thought on Bobby. Like, I'm not concerned, but I also think the Pistons need a backup for. I don't think he's ready in the event of a Tobias injury to play real rotation minutes for the Pistons. I hope he proves me wrong. But I think there's so much potential still there, and I think he can get to a really get to a point of establishing a role with the Pistons and in the NBA and have a really successful career. But this is why I've gone and I found 3 players who the Pistons could sign for vet minimums, in my opinion, and they potentially, you could get a whole heap of value out of them, a whole lot of value out of them off a vet minimum. Now, none of these are sexy names, but they're 3 names that I just went through and I thought, let's talk about it. So the first one I want to discuss, you can see the 3 players on the right here. But the first player I want to discuss is Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, 6'9", true power forward, 24 years old, played 2 years for the Thunder, last 2 seasons with the Pelicans. Last season with the Pelicans, he averaged basically 6 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, less than 1 turnover in 19 minutes. He shot 46% from the field, 34% from 3, 84% from the line. And the big number here for me was, whilst the 34% from 3 isn't great, it's a tiny bit below average, he's shot in the corners the past 2 seasons, 40 and 43%. So he's turned himself into like a pretty decent corner shooter, at least in like a small role of like playing 19, 20 minutes a game. But he's a guy in the Thunder I kind of liked. I think his deficiencies come defensively, but for a backup 4 who, probably won't be consistently a part of the rotation, I think like if he can shoot it, like that's a guy like who could really help this team. You get him on a vet minimum, I think that he has some like passing feel that could be really interesting. And it's a name I kind of had missed this whole time when looking at free agents, because I certainly think there's something there with him. So definitely a name to keep an eye on there. Let me know your thoughts on him. I always thought with the Thunder, like those Thunder teams he were on in his first 2 years were rebuilding. Then I think they made the play-in. So it's not like he's played a heap of playoff minutes, but like just as a vet, he's 24, but he would come in a bit more of an established product. I think he could offer some really nice minutes in the event of injury, and maybe he could carve out a role as a 10th man in the rotation. The next player is a vet, and that's Tory Craig. I've always really liked Tory Craig. He is 34, though. He'd be turning 35 during the season. 6'7". He's listed as a small forward, but I feel like he's definitely a true 4-man these days. Last season, he was on the Celtics and I think the Bulls. 4 points, 3 rebounds. None of these guys' stats are going to jump out, but I'm still going to give them to you. He's shot 36% from 3 and then 35% for career. And then the past 2 seasons prior, he's shot close to 40% from 3 as well, when he had more of a consistent role on the Suns. So he can shoot it. He's not a high volume guy, but once again, like we're talking about players that could maybe carve out a role as the 10th man. Like and could be nights for all these guys where they don't play. There probably will be. This will be more an investment in playing Ron and Asar, giving them minutes. But I think Tory Craig's a guy I've always liked. Yeah, I think a lot of people will be like, look, at 34, 35, he might be past it defensively, and that's very fair. When he was with the Nuggets, probably 4 or 5 years ago, he was a true 3-and-D player. I wouldn't be surprised if defense has dropped a little bit. But I think just for depth, having another vet, I think it could be a nice little signing, and you might get a couple of really good games from him in the event, like I said, of injury, that kind of thing. The final player I want to talk about here is Bol Bol. I'm not going to lie, Bol Bol has always been intriguing to me, but when it comes to like winning basketball and playoff basketball, it hasn't always been a name that's excited me for our Pistons. But upon just like kind of thinking about it and doing this exercise, I was thinking, I'm like, could the Pistons unlock something with him? Just like I said, I really want to reiterate, these 3 players are probably not going to be a part of the rotation. But, if he gets on the court, could you play him alongside Isaiah Stewart? I kind of feel like you could. He's 7'3", massive wingspan. He's always put up points in short minutes, but just quickly, last season he gave you 7 points, 3 rebounds in like 12 minutes a night, 50% from the field, or 53%, 34% from 3. But once again, like I mentioned, he's with some of the other guys. Past 2 seasons and a half, his 3-point attempts have come from the corners. Or over half his 3 points have come from the corners, and he shot 42% and 35% from the corners. So I think when you're looking at these 4 men that we're talking about here, like, they need to be able to shoot corner threes. That's the most important, in my opinion. So he can shoot the corner 3. And I think if you put him in a role where you're not asking him to dribble and go crazy like you see the highlights, like I think at his height, like we're talking about playing like 8 minutes a game maybe. Like that could be fun. Like the length with like, say, you got Stu, Bol Bol, maybe you got one of Ron or Asar out there, you got Cade, throw Ivy in there. Like that could be really fun for like 5 minutes and a half, or 5 minutes in the first half, second half, if you don't have a couple of guys playing. So he's 25 years old. He's not as young as he once was, but still young. So maybe, he comes here on a minimum. He's a lot to play for. To keep his NBA career alive. Maybe you could play him even alongside Jalen Duren sometimes. Obviously, the strength isn't great. Interior defense and rebounding isn't the best, but weak side rim protection, it could just be really fun. Like, to be honest, maybe I'm just showing my true colors here and just wanting to see the fan side of me's coming out too much. But yeah, those are 3 names there. If I had to pick one, honestly, I think Robinson-Earl probably sticks out the most, but I'd love to know which one sticks out to you. Or is there another buy low free agent that you could see at the power forward position? There was some other names, but these were the 3 I liked the most. And like I said, there's the bigger names like Boucher, Lyles, and Achua, who I'd have ahead of these guys, but I wanted to mix up the content, and these are true vet min guys, I believe. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back tomorrow with another video. We'll also be back breaking down the Pistons' 5th and final Summer League game. But until then, as always, go Pistons.